In this Illustrator demo, I want to show you the ins and outs of working with patterns, and more importantly, how to create your own and manipulate them. So I will go to File and Open. As usual, I've got an Illustrator file started for us. I will go to Chapter 11 and 11.1, Creating New Patterns. And I'll click Open. So all I have set up is a page of 5 artboards. I want you to design and fill each one of these rectangles with a new pattern of your own creation. Okay, so what I'm going to do is click outside. I'll hit D for default colors, and then I'm going to zoom in right above the page, right up here. Okay, one of the simplest designs for a pattern is one object. So I'll take my star tool. I'm going to click and drag, and that's not the star I wanted. Okay, so if I let go of the mouse, I got to delete it. I want a simple 6-pointed star. So I'm going to click and drag. While I hold the mouse, I hit the down arrow key on my keyboard until I get a 5-pointed star, like the Carl's Jr. star. Now I'll hit the up arrow and I get a 6-pointed star. If I hold my shift key, I will get a star pointing straight up and down. And you don't want to start big like that. Okay, a pattern is an object that repeats itself over and over and over. This star would be so big I can only repeat it 2 or 3 times. So that wouldn't work as a pattern. Okay, so keep in mind your artwork should be small. So I'll take that same star, click and drag, and now I hold shift. And we'll go the small one like that. I let go of the mouse first, then the shift key. And I'm going to make that star red. So I'll go to my swatches and I'll click on red. What I've found is that your artwork will work better as a pattern if it does not have a stroke. So I click on the black stroke, hit the question mark key, and then come back to the fill. Okay, with one object, I can go to Object menu, Pattern, Make. And 3 things are going to happen simultaneously. Okay, number 1, you get this warning. Your new pattern has been added to the swatches panel. There it is. Number 2, it's going to say any changes that you make will be applied to that pattern. So you got to click OK. And number 3, you get your pattern options. Okay, notice how the boxes disappear. We're not in our Illustrator file. We're in the pattern design area. So right up here, you can name your patterns if you want to. I don't see any names over here, so I don't bother naming my patterns. You can set up the way the star repeats itself through these options. So grid means they're going to go straight up and down and left and right. Brick by row offsets them, like stacking bricks on a building. You put a line and then you move halfway across and then halfway across. Or you could go brick by column and do it vertically. Okay, and it doesn't matter as you're working, it doesn't matter where this lands. I can still see fine what the preview of this pattern would look like. So don't worry about like this if it goes off the page. Okay, you also have hex by column and hex by row. Okay, so hex means this little blue outline. This is called your pattern tile. You'll see right here, if I go brick by row, I've got a rectangular brick. If I go hex, I have a hexagon. Okay, and I kind of like this, hex by column. I like how it's creating these 2 little white shapes, just a little bit of space in between those stars. If I go hex by row, it's a totally different relationship. Now these three empty spaces are looking like a Mitsubishi logo. Okay, so I want to go hex by column. I kind of like that. But I want to experiment with the design. So right up here in the upper left is your pattern tile tool. I click that, and now I can pull apart this tile. So right up here in the upper right. The bigger the tile, the more space you will have in your pattern. All of this white space is all of this white space and this white space and this space and this space. So the bigger your tile, the more empty spaces you have in your pattern. The smaller the tile, the tighter your pattern will be. So I can pull this side in and closer and closer and closer and really tighten up the space right there. Maybe I pull the top edge down a little bit. So now they're all sitting. So now, if the tile is smaller than the artwork, all the reds start to bleed together. And then you get a pattern more of these white shapes than actual stars. So I don't want that. I'm going to pull that back out a little bit. I kind of like that spacing right there. And that looks pretty cool. So right up here on this thin gray bar, I click Done. I'm done designing my pattern. Now I come back to my artwork page, and I'll take my zoom tool, Option or Alt click so I can zoom out. I take the black arrow, select this first rectangle, click on the fill, and I fill it with my pattern. Okay, pattern number 1 is done. But let's say I change my mind and I think empty or flat red stars is not good enough for me. I want something more dynamic. Well, right here is your pattern. You can double click and you go right back into pattern editing mode. That is awesome. They're all linked together. So now I click on this star. It is totally editable here in Adobe Illustrator's pattern editing mode. So I could change that star to a dark green. And I'll go with that. I'm going to zoom in real close, like this. Click outside with my black arrow, and now I'm going to add more stars on top of this. Here's my star tool. Stars start from their center. I hold Shift and we'll drag a slightly smaller star. I can hold my space bar to move it. I want to make sure it looks nice and centered. I let go of the mouse, let go of my Shift key and my space bar, and we'll make that even lighter green. Add it to one, it gets added to all of them. I'll hold Shift and drag, space bar to move that a little bit, and now I'll make that lighter green. I'll hold Shift, space bar to recenter that, let go of my mouse, and even lighter green. Patterns can be made up of multiple pieces of artwork. So now when I click Done, it automatically updated my file. Because all these stars are linked to what I do here. Make a change here, it makes the change on your page. Okay, that's one thing. Patterns can start with one piece of artwork. You can edit that and change it at any time. Okay, the second thing you should know, I'll click outside, D for default colors. And now I'm going to start with multiple pieces of artwork. So I'm going to zoom in here on my page. I'm going to start with a rectangle. Okay, if I hold Shift, I will create a perfect square. We'll go something like that, right about there. Let go of the mouse. Then I'm going to hit this curved arrow. I want a black square. I'm going to click on the white stroke, hit the question mark key for no outline, and then I come back to the black square, the fill. Right here is my rotate tool. You'll either see the reflect tool from a previous use, or you press and hold and go to the rotate tool. I'm going to double click on that rotate tool and I'm going to rotate this object 45 degrees. So I make a diamond. Okay, then I'm going to come back in with my star. Stars start from the center, so in order to be perfectly lined up, I'm going to go to View, Smart Guides, View, Snap to Point. Now it tells me I'm on the center. I'm going to drag and hold Shift, and right there. I want to go right to the edges. I let go of the mouse. Now I'll make that white. Now I'm going to hold down and switch back to an ellipse. I'm going to put it right here. Let's zoom in so we can really see what we're designing here. Let's go to my ellipse right there. Shift and Option or Alt, and I'll make a circle from its center right there. I let go of the mouse first, then the keyboard. I'm going to take my black arrow, drag it across. There's my alignment guide. Right about there. Option or Alt key for a copy, and I let go of the mouse first. Perfect. And now I'm going to come back in with another rectangle. Right here on the tip of that star. Shift and Option or Alt key to draw from the center. We'll do a small one like that. I let go of the mouse first, then the keyboard. And now I double click my rotate tool. It remembers the 45-degree angle. So that's perfect. I'll click OK. Now I take my black arrow and we'll drag the center down to that point. Option or Alt key for a copy. And we'll start to make a more complex design. I'm going to come back in with my star tool again. Right from the center, I hold Shift to drag another pointed star. I let go of the mouse first, then the keyboard, and I'll make that black. I'll switch back to my ellipse, right over the center, Shift and Option or Alt key to draw from the center. I'll let go of my mouse first, then the keyboard. I'll make that white. Hold Shift and Option. We'll do another one right there. Let go of the mouse first, then the keyboard, and we'll make that black again. Right there. Okay, then I'm going to come in with my rectangle right over the center. I'm going to hold just my Option or Alt key, and I'm going to drag a long, vertical, skinny rectangle right about there. Just kind of coming down past the tip like that. I let go of the mouse first, then the keyboard. I'm going to double click my rotate tool, and I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees. You can see the preview right here. I'm going to have a vertical and a horizontal. So it's kind of poking out of the corners of that diamond. Copy it. Now I take my black arrow, click on the horizontal rectangle, shift click the vertical one, and I go to Object, Arrange, Send them to the back. So I get them just kind of poking out of the edges. Here's a stack of multiple pieces of artwork. Okay, and just to add a little more design flair to it, I'm going to come back in with my ellipse right over the center of that one. Shift and Option or Alt key. Let go of the mouse first. Take my black arrow, drag it over, Option or Alt key for a copy, and I let go of the mouse first, just so we have a little bit more color in there. Select it all. Object menu, pattern, make. Now, before I click that, okay, I'll click OK, and let's click cancel. Okay, the rule behind patterns is all of your artwork, it can be multiple pieces like this, but your artwork has to be only filled with a color, or it can be filled with a gradient. I cannot take this little square, this diamond, fill it in with my star pattern, and then try to turn a pattern into a pattern. See, if I selected all that, and now go to Object, Pattern, Make, you will get an error. Patterns cannot contain anything painted with another pattern. Okay, so if I click outside, I can click here and fill it with a color. It will turn into a pattern. I can fill it with a gradient. It would still turn into a pattern. You just can't use a pattern on a pattern. Okay, but I'll just set it back to black. Just remember, your artwork can be multiple shapes, multiple colors. You just can't fill it with a pattern. So we'll go with this, black and white. Select it, Object, Pattern, Make. It gets added to my swatches panel. It tells me it added it, and it tells me if I make any changes, it's going to update that. So I'll click OK. Command and minus to zoom out. That would be Control and minus on your PC. And I really don't like these big empty white spaces. So instead of a grid, let's see what a brick by row does. Okay, that kind of offsets them, but I get this zigzagging shape right here. So let's go to the pattern tile tool. And I'm going to try to pull this top edge down. It won't let me pull that top edge. So let's pull the corner down a little bit and let go. Down a little bit more and let go. And I'm going to pull that down to there so those lines kind of crisscross and touch. That's kind of cool. Or if I pull this up a little higher, I have a tiny little gap between them, but I don't like that little gap. So I'll pull it down to there. I like that look. I'll click Done right across this gray bar. Done. Now I can select all this and delete it. I zoom out. Option click with the zoom tool on my Mac. That would be Alt click with the PC. I select this big rectangle. There's my fill. And there's my pattern. Now I can zoom in and see what that looks like. So here's the other thing you have to be aware of. This is not a black and white pattern. Okay? All the empty spaces between here are literally empty space. They're not color. So just to show you that, if I took my black arrow, clicked outside, and then changed the color fill for the next thing I want to draw to, let's say, orange. If I went to draw another rectangle like this, watch what happens when I send it to the back. Object, arrange, send it to the back of my pattern. You would see right through the pattern. And that's not going to look good. Okay, we'll get rid of the black stroke, hit the question mark key. So now if I add a pattern on a layer and I decide I want something to look like it's going behind it, that's not going to work. Okay, so that'll ruin the effect. So you have to keep that in mind. It's the same thing over here. All these empty spaces are not white. They're true empty spaces. So again, if I drew a rectangle and said object, arrange, send it to the back, you would see right through your pattern. Okay, so here's how you make sure nobody can see through the pattern. I select, actually let's click outside. Let's do an orange rectangle again. D for default colors. Click on my white fill and we'll go orange. And I'll do it again. I'll just drag a box like that. Object, arrange, send it to the back. You can see right through the pattern. So here's the fix for that. I click on the box with my pattern and I go to Window menu, Appearance. Okay, this box, this big rectangle, has a bold outline and it has a pattern. But what I can do with my appearance panel, which is what I love, is I click the pop-up and I add another new fill. All it's going to do is copy the same pattern. So it's technically like I have two patterns on top of each other. I click the bottom one, and instead of also filling with a pattern with empty space, I fill it with white. Now this orange cannot be seen through the white. If I click on the pattern, I don't have to fill the empty spaces with white. I can fill them with blue, or I could fill them with orange, or I could fill them with yellow or red. It doesn't matter. And I'm not even in pattern editing mode anymore. I'm adding another color that fills in the gaps for all the empty spaces on my pattern. Okay, so keep that in mind. You can use your appearance panel, add a new fill. The bottom one, the one underneath the pattern, can be any color you want to update it, or just flat white. Now I can't see this coming through my pattern. Okay. The other thing to keep in mind is not only do I have two patterns, I haven't saved them yet. File menu, save as. Last name, first name, patterns. On my desktop as an Illustrator file. Okay, the third option for creating patterns. I hold my space bar, drag over here, click outside and hit D for default colors. One of the oldest, first ways, years and years ago, over 10 years, is you started with a tile, like buying a bathroom tile at Home Depot. You just hold Shift and you say, I want to put a tile like that as a pattern. Okay, I'm going to go to View menu, turn off my Smart Guides, View menu, turn off Snap to Point, and I'm going to fill this box with, I don't know, let's say light green right here. Okay, what you don't want is the black outline around it. Let me show you why. If you keep the black stroke, that will become part of your pattern. So if I click this square and I said Object, Pattern, Make, it's going to look like the grout in between your tiles. Okay, that line will become part of your pattern. So I'll click Cancel. I'm going to click on this box, click on the stroke, and hit the question mark key. Just a flat color box. Click on it. Click on your fill so you're ready to add to it later. And now I go to Object, Pattern, Make. I'll click OK. This is the original box, so I'm going to zoom in on that. Okay, and here's the old-fashioned way. Let's say I want to add a bunch of spots. Okay, I'll click on my fill and I'll go with black. Now I come over here and let's add ellipses. So here's the trick. If I hold Shift, I cannot hit the left side of the box like that. If I do, it's going to cut off my artwork on the other side. Okay, can't hit the left side. So I'll delete it, or backspace on your PC. You cannot hit the top. Wherever it enters, it will exit and it will cut that off. So I have to delete it or backspace. What you can do is hit the right side. Wherever it enters, it will exit. And you can hit the bottom. Wherever it enters, it will exit. So as long as you keep that rule in mind, you can hit the right side, you can hit the bottom, you cannot draw a circle and hit the top, you cannot draw a circle and hit the left. So now if I take my circle and we'll drag another one right there, it hit the right, so it exits, that's perfect. I'll hit another circle right there, and I'm going to hit undo. I don't like that. Let's go right there. And then we'll draw another one right there, another here, another, and another, and another. And then I just keep filling in the spaces with other circles. So we'll do a bigger circle right there, smaller circles. As long as I don't hit the left edge or the top, I'm golden. I'm good. So I'm going to keep selecting these circles or drawing these circles. Maybe we'll do another one and a couple of small ones. Just avoid the top edge. And I'll draw little small ones. Just kind of fill up all these little gaps right here. Like that. And right there, right there, right there. We'll keep drawing all these in. Okay, I can hit the bottom. And I can hit the right. I just can't hit the top. I can go close to the top, but not right on it. Let's make that a little bigger. All right, there we go. Now I can take my black arrow and I'm going to hit Command and minus on my Mac. That would be Control and minus on your PC just to kind of zoom out. I don't think this big circle works because then I start to see this kind of grid-like look. So I'll click on that and delete it. Hold Shift and maybe we'll replace that with some smaller circles right here. Kind of like that. There we go. Get a slightly more random look to it. Okay, I like that, but I don't like all the circles being black. So now I can jump in, click, hold Shift, and randomly select a few other circles. I'll just jump around here and shift click, shift click, shift click. And maybe we'll make those white. Cool. Click, then shift click, shift click, shift click, shift click, shift click, shift click, shift click. Maybe we'll make those red. Click, shift click, shift click, shift click, shift click, shift click, shift click, and I'll make those blue. Now I click done. I'll zoom out, option click with my Mac, alt click with your PC on your magnifying tool to zoom out. Take my black arrow, delete that square, select the rectangle, click on the fill, and there's my third pattern. Okay, so let's say now that you've designed that, File, save your progress. Let's say this pattern is too small. You want all the circles to be bigger. You don't have to redesign your pattern. What you do is you select the rectangle that the pattern is in. You go right over here to your scale tool. Right next to rotate or reflect is your scale tool. Double click and you bring up the scale dialog box. Okay, what I am trying to scale is not the object. I'll turn that off. I like the rectangle as it is. I'm trying to scale the pattern. So I'm going to type in 200%. I turn the preview off. There's before, there's after. Okay, I don't want the outline to be scaled, so don't scale the stroke. I just want to scale the pattern. If this is turned on, it's going to scale everything. Okay, I don't want the box to be so huge. Don't transform my object, just transform my pattern. Okay, I'll make that 150. 200 was a little too big. So now I can see a few more circles in there. I'll click OK. And here's another trick. If I select this rectangle with my black arrow, and I don't like how all these are lining up right along that edge, on my keyboard, in the upper left corner of my keyboard is my escape key, but don't press that. Okay. Right below the escape key is a little key next to the number 1. It has a little squiggle on it. Okay. That key is called your tilde key. Tilde. Tilde. If you hold that key down and now you use your left arrow key on your keyboard, you can nudge a pattern inside of the object. So I'll just hold down the tilde and the left arrow key until I push this pattern slowly across the object. So I want those 3 lines of red circles just to go up and down the center like that. That's good. I like where that pattern lands now. I take my black arrow, click outside. Hold my space bar, and I'm going to come over here to this first one that I started with. And you'll notice the stars go left and right, left and right, left and right. Maybe I want them coming in at an angle. So I can select this rectangle. Right next to your scale tool, if you press and hold, you have a rotate tool. I can double click on the rotate and I have the same options. What am I trying to rotate? You don't want both because then you're going to rotate everything. I'm not trying to rotate the object. I'm trying to rotate the pattern inside the object. So I'll type in 30 degrees. Here's before and there's after. You can see how I'm rotating the stars inside. And I click OK. So not only can you design patterns, you can scale them and blow them up afterward. You don't have to redesign the whole pattern. You can start patterns with multiple objects. You can start patterns and rotate them. Remember, if you click outside, you can double click on a pattern to enter pattern editing mode. So I can click on that square and maybe make that red. Click done and it will instantly update my file for me. I love that feature because whatever you do here is linked to where you used it here. I will go to File, Save My Progress. And then the last 2 are up to you. Design whatever you want. In fact, try to go back and don't copy what I've done. Design your own. So let's say you're like, yeah, I want to be a little more creative. I don't want to do the same star and the same boxes and the same circles. If that's your case, select them all. Well, let me backtrack. If you're not big on patterns, do what I've done. Do what I've done. Do what I've done. That's fine. At least you're going to know how to make patterns. But if you want to really push it, you want to be great at Illustrator, don't just copy what I've done here. Design 5 new ones. So if you've been copying what I've done and now you decide, okay, I think I got the hang of this, I want to go back and design my own, click, hit the question mark key, no fill. Click, there's your fill, question mark key. Oops. Select, question mark key, and notice it's not working. That's because I used my appearance panel on this one. So I have to select the other fill, the one with the pattern. Then I hit my question mark key. Select, I'm on the fill, question mark key. And then design 5 of your own. Okay? But I'm going to put these back the way they were. It's totally up to you. I'll just go to Edit, Undo, 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 Undo. Oh, one more time. Okay. Design your own, copy me, it doesn't matter. I want you to create 5 patterns from scratch. The only other thing to keep in mind is whenever you design a pattern on a file, it is only good for that file. Notice I have my 3 patterns right here. If I went to File and New and clicked Create, those patterns will be gone. Okay, your swatches panel, your brushes panel, your symbols panel, they all reset themselves whenever you start a brand new file. So keep that in mind. Okay, the last trick I'll show you, let's say you're at school and you design 3 patterns, but you want to use them when you get home. Okay, the easiest way to do this that I've found, select those 3 boxes, edit, copy, come back to this file, there's no patterns there, edit, paste, it adds them back in, and just delete the boxes. You still have your patterns. Copy and paste to make patterns jump from one file to another file. Easy done. Easy to do it. So that's how you work with patterns here in Adobe Illustrator. The last thing I want to show you is not only can you rotate patterns, not only can you scale patterns, but you can also warp patterns. So I'm going to select this one right here. I'll click on my red pattern again. And now I want to warp it. Okay, you can do that right up here. Object, Envelope Distort, Envelope Options. Distort my patterns. Okay, then you do not go to Effect menu and warp, because if you do, it's not going to warp your pattern. It's going to warp the shape, but not the pattern inside that shape. Okay, like I've shown you before, Illustrator has 2 warps. Effect menu, warp does not work on gradients. It does not work on patterns. Object menu, envelope, and warp does. See, I can warp that with an arc. I can warp it with a flag. And we'll just bend these back to 0. There we go. So I can do that any way I want and warp those under Object menu, Envelope, and Warp. Okay, we'll just click OK on that. So just be aware that you have that option, and I'll delete that. If I do, now I don't have a rectangle, but you always know, if you select, hold your Option or Alt key, you can make a copy. Notice how the copy goes all over the place. So after you start to drag, you hold Shift and Option or Alt. For a copy, let go of the mouse first and fill these in with 5 original patterns. Good luck. I look forward to seeing what you come up with. Time to play around with Illustrator. Okay? But man, every time I think I'm done, I think of one more thing. The only other thing I want to show you is when you select on your swatches panel, not only can you create originals, but like I've kind of hinted at before, in the bottom left is swatch libraries. Illustrator comes with its own patterns. Basic is going to be black and white patterns. Decorative is, well, click on them and try them out, or nature patterns. Okay, so let's say I pick decorative Vonster and I click on this one right here. kind of similar to that. But I don't want red. I want this to be a green or a blue pattern. These patterns that came with Illustrator are the same as the patterns I made. I can double click, tribal. I can zoom in, right there. I can take my white arrow, click on red, and say select everything with the same fill color of red, and just change that to green or blue. Click done. Now I've got a totally different pattern that didn't come with Illustrator. So you can grab patterns and double click to edit those right out of Illustrator. So don't do it for mine, but know that it is capable. Design your own 5 patterns. Save one last time and I swear I will shut up. All right. See you around.